Herm Edwards out at Arizona State. We got Michelle Gardner on the line from Arizona Republic to help us break it down. The news just broke on Sunday. Michelle, I know that it's been a long, long night last night with a late game and some issues that you had and the entire media after the Arizona State game. And then boom, today the news broke and you had to jump on it. So we appreciate you stopping by. I'll start out this way, Michelle. If Herm Edwards is 3-0 right now, he doesn't get fired. And if he's 1-2, but there's no NCAA investigation pending, then he doesn't get fired. Was it the combination of the two?
No, it actually had everything to do with the way they're playing and the way they played against the team they should have beaten. I mean, you cannot lose at home to Eastern Michigan. I mean, it was embarrassing from the opening kickoff. It was an embarrassment. And I think that was the final straw. And I definitely think it was more that and the way they've been playing this year as opposed to the investigation. If they were going to get rid of Herm because of the investigation, they would have done it months ago.
No, it's a great point. I just figured that there were some combinations similar to Rich Rodriguez at Arizona who had some off the field issues, but was winning enough. And then when the record started to head south, that seemed as though it all kind of came together. But you're telling us it's all about the football on the field, so that's intriguing. So what was stated at today's news conference in regards to the state of the program and where they want it to be, because we know Herm Edwards came in. It was a controversial choice, an unconventional choice, and the results were mixed. A lot of 7-6, 8-5, but really not competing for division championships.
Well, Ray Anderson said it was the toughest thing he's had to do in his life professionally. Those two go way back, and Ray Anderson was Herm's agent when he was in the NFL. So the conjecture around here is Herm will never get fired by Ray because Ray and him go way back so far. So it was termed a mutual parting of the ways. And Ray just said, when you look at things, we were hoping things would be better. They weren't. You've got to look at yourself in the mirror. You've got to do what's best in the best interest of the program. And it was a mutual parting of the ways. They both said, you know what, this isn't going the way it should. And so now is the time to do it. And, we talked in the elevator going down to the press conference last night about whether this would be a Scott Frost situation where he got fired the day after a really brutal loss. And all signs were pointing in this direction. So I don't think any of us were really surprised. The other thing we thought maybe they wait till the bye week, because sometimes it's easier for that transition if you do it during a bye week. But ASU's got 3 games before that, and they're Utah, USC, and Washington. So it could be really ugly by then. So I don't think they thought it was going to get any better, and let's just rip the Band-Aid off now and start over.
Michelle Gardner joining us from Arizona Republic to break down the situation at Arizona State. Herm Edwards shown the door. At least with Scott Frost, though, he never achieved at Nebraska. Like every season, a losing season, favored son, but still enough was enough. But with Herm Edwards, this is an obvious letdown here to start, but we're only mid to late September. Was like last year, 8-5 on the surface doesn't seem so bad. They lose a bowl game. They play Wisconsin, fairly tough. Like on the surface, not a bad season, but because of the status of the Pac-12, really a smoke and mirrors kind of 8-5. The 17 transfers, really not the program going in the right direction.
Well, we asked Ray that specifically. What about, why didn't you do it at the end of last year? He said, 8-5 is not terrible. Granted, with what they had coming back, they thought they'd be better than that, but 8-5 wasn't horrible. But they just thought with the way the direction the program is headed now and the loss, that was just such an abysmal loss that's why they did it. And when you look at this thing, I'm actually looking, when Herm first came in, they showed modest improvement the first couple of years, got to the bowl games. They started recruiting California crazy. They had some really, really good success recruiting California. And then COVID hit. And I hate to blame everything on COVID, but if COVID doesn't happen, they don't have the recruiting allegations. That 2020 season was the season they only played 4 games. That was the start of Jaden Daniels' career going south after a great freshman year. So it just kind of seemed like it all hit the fan after that, and they never recovered.
And to your point, Michelle, I actually was prepared to make a comment about Herm Edwards because of his ability to connect to young people, on the engagement that he has with youth, and being able to connect. That I was kind of under the thought, having not looked at the recruiting rankings for quite some time, apparently, that recruiting had improved initially under him. I know that it's been rough since the NCAA situation came out, but I went back a few minutes ago and I looked, and Todd Graham was living in that 17 to 25 range his last few seasons, and then Herm comes in, has some mid 20s recruiting classes, but the last few have been rough in the mid 40s to 50s range, and certainly not a good 2023 prospect right now.
Well, it's all because of the investigation. That's why they only had 6 or so high school recruits last year. Nobody's going to come here when they don't know the future of the program. So before the investigation, they were doing pretty well. And like I said, recruiting crazy California. I think one recruiting class they had more top 100 recruits out of California than USC and UCLA did. So they really had made great strides and were getting into homes and talking to prospects that wouldn't even look at ASU before. And then everything just kind of came crashing down. So I think the initial couple of years, it was modest. I would call it modest progress, but then everything came basically falling down here in the last year and a half.
You tend to wonder, because this happens from time to time, it's kind of the theory that the next guy in the door is the antithesis of the guy that was shown the door, that whatever that is. And for Herm Edwards, it would seem, okay, the attention to details grinder guy would be the antithesis of the innovative CEO, is what the opening statement was, as you well remember from Anderson when he introduced Herm Edwards, that we want to go this innovative CEO direction. So did they talk about what they're looking for next?
Well, he did say that Sean Iguana, who's the running backs coach, will be given every opportunity to retain that job. They will look at him seriously. And obviously, this will be a job audition for him. We're scheduled to speak with Sean tomorrow. Herm normally has a Monday press conference with the media, and Sean will take that over. We'll just go right in. But yeah, I think that a couple things happened last night too that kind of made this trending in this direction. So just kind of going back a little bit, Herm has seemed a little bit out of touch with things. I don't know if that's the right way to put it, but for instance, after the after the first game, Joey Ramos, an offensive lineman, had come off with an ankle injury, and Herm said, "Oh, he's going to be okay. He's just a lineman." Yeah. And the next thing we know, on Monday, he's out for the season with a broken ankle. And there have been a couple situations like that with injuries where I don't think Herm was trying to deceive us. I don't know if he just wasn't getting the right information or was talking without knowing or what, but that's kind of been a common theme this year with injuries. And then last night, classic example, before halftime, they get the ball back. They're down by 10 with like a minute and a half left, and they get the ball back and they start driving the field, and they're facing a third and I believe 6. They throw a short pass and they get 5 yards. So it's 4th and 1 with 12 seconds left, and Herm calls timeout. We're like, what? Why not let the clock run out? It's 4th down. Now you're making your punter go out on the field and punt, as opposed to just letting the clock run out. And then Herm said after, when we asked him, "I thought we made the first down, so we were going to go for another play." So that was just a situation. It's, and then when you add just things on top of it, and the penalties looked like they were getting better for the first game because they only had 4 penalties the first game, but lo and behold, the last 2 games, now you're back up to 80, 90 yards and penalties again. So I just think it's been one thing after another, where after 3 games, it was kind of obvious that this just wasn't going to work.
All right. They're expecting more at Arizona State. Of course, the plight of the Pac-12 is an intriguing possible factor, not in the coaching decision, but also what's talked about there. While I've got you on the line in regards to, obviously, Oregon and Washington have apparently applied to the Big Ten, and USC and UCLA leaving in 2024, about Arizona State and what possibly could be offered by maybe the Big 12 and its future in the Pac-12 and trying to stay there?
Well, when I talked to Ray Anderson about this, maybe 2 months ago, he basically said that the Big 12 stuff was thrown out by the Big 12 and that was just way overblown and thrown out there by the Big 12. He said he had one conversation with one AD from the Big 12 that lasted maybe 10 minutes. So he said that was the Big 12 throwing that out there more than anything else. It really looks now like it's going to be the teams moving forward in the Pac-10. I don't know if they're going to go back to Pac-10 or whatever, but they presented a united front at Pac-12 Media Day. Now, whether or not Washington and Oregon are that big of an attraction for the Big Ten, I don't know. I mean, do you want to add those two teams? Are they going to add that much more to your conference that you want to divvy up the pie another two ways? I just don't think it makes sense. The only thing that would is if they were to bring those two in and maybe you have like a West Coast version of the Big Ten where you're not traveling across the country, every weekend to play a game. But I still see Oregon and Washington staying put for now. That doesn't mean they might not bounce at some point. But I think the Pac-12 is going to they're going to expand. I think it's at some point they will. Now, I don't know if it's going to be next year, but I see San Diego State. Obviously, that's the name that's bandied about quite a bit, being a pretty good fit or as good a fit as it can be. I wouldn't be surprised to maybe see a UNLV. The conference, headquarters is going to be moving out of San Francisco. Kliavkoff, the commissioner, is from Vegas. He's got background there. The Pac-12 tournaments and the football championship games are already in Vegas. So that kind of makes sense. I don't know that their athletic program is on par with what the Pac-12 would like to see, but maybe their footprint gets better if they join the Pac-12. So who knows?
Yeah, that seems to be the interesting angle on UNLV, is that it's got absolutely nothing going for it but location. And maybe with Pac-12 in the way Kliavkoff thinks about sports being entertainment and getting ahead of the curve, that connection to Vegas, because athletically and academically, I don't know that UNLV is a good fit for the Pac-12. Then you got Fresno State, that's obviously has a strong connection with Pac-12, schedules a lot of Pac-12 opponents, and has that Northern California media market.
Right. Well, I think the one thing we all enjoy about the Pac-12, from a media standpoint, it's pretty hassle-free when it comes to travel. You got good airports in most of these places. They're not huge trips on a plane, 2.5 hours maybe. So I think we kind of get a little bit spoiled that we've got, all the teams within a reasonable distance. So I think we're spoiled.
Michelle Gardner, Arizona Republic, does a fantastic job there. Please check out her work. Obviously going forward with Arizona State football this season, and now a replacement for one HERM Edwards. Michelle, thanks so much for stopping by. I know that it's been a whirlwind for you, and I appreciate you giving us some time.
Anytime.